I don't have too much to say, but I'm just so glad that this violin come back to its birthplace, and we hear the sound in the birthplace. It's so exciting for me. I think my uncle in heaven will be really happy to hear this.
Visibilmente emozionato, ha detto che ha poche cose da dire, solo esprime la sua gioia che il violino.
All the building will be opened by the violin making school.
About 30 years ago, the town decided that it was time to have a very important international competition for violin making in Cremona. So they set up a board who was in charge to organize this competition, which was going on every 3 years. From that, the name of Triennale competition. And over the year, this board developed and recently has been transformed into a foundation which has the purpose of promoting the violin making in Cremona from the cultural point of view. We don't do anything of commercial type, but we do only cultural events. So we started to organize historical exhibits of instruments, producing books, catalogs, meetings, and more recently this project, Friends of Stradivarius, to open up the town to instruments and to people that maybe have an instrument in the house but were not exposed or not used. And with this project we want to share this the knowledge of the instruments and the possibility to give to people the possibility to listen to them and to study them. We have a specialized museum in Cremona where a lot of makers come to have inspiration about the violin they want to make, and going back to these wonderful instruments that are around us and looking at the model. We still have the papers of Stradivari, we have the tools that Stradivari was using. So it's really a unique atmosphere where a maker or a lover of violin making can really it's sort of the mecca of violin making. So this is what we want to do with the Stradivari Foundation. We want really to reinforce the role of Cremona as the central point of violin making in the world. The great period of the Cremonese classical school is from the middle of the 16th century until the middle of the 18th century. And Andrea Amati started his workshop. Andrea Amati, who was born in 1505, was the first one that codified exactly the shape and the size of the violin. That by the middle of the 16th century, so about in 1540, Andrea Amati was already ordered an entire concert of instruments by the King of France, Charles IX. And later on for the court of Spain. This to say that he was well known all through Europe, and he was absolutely number one at the time. And from his workshop, most of the other important makers came out, like Guarneri del Gesù, and probably Stradivari and Bergondi. So this was really the learning school for everybody. of course, Stradivari, who became the most famous maker in the world and still now is, he brought the violin making technique basically to perfection. He was very skilled in every part, carving the wood and in choosing the right kind of wood, in assembling the varnish itself, and also especially in the varnish. There are a lot of legends about the varnish of Stradivari, this beautiful color that he was able to give. So he was really, he's recognized as the highest quality maker so far. He was also, he was able to make innovation in the violin making. And also he lived for a very long time. So he was 92 when he died, and this was very exceptional for the time. So his production is huge. The people that study his biography say that probably from his workshop came out about 1,000 instruments, of which perhaps the half is still around the world. This beautiful violin that we see on my left is a Stradivari violin built in 1714. This period of time, which goes between 1710 and 1730, is called the golden age of the Stradivari production. This to say that probably the very best instruments of this great maker were made in this time. And we don't know the history of this instrument until the beginning of the 19th century, but for sure it's been owned and played for a long time by Joachim, the great virtuoso of the time. And then later on, he came into the possession of Mr. Si-Hon-Ma, Maestro Si-Hon-Ma, who was a Chinese player that formed and studied in the United States and then became a successful soloist and teacher. Maestro Si-Hon-Ma bought this instrument exactly 60 years after the death of Joachim. And his teacher were pupils of Maestro Joachim. So there is a fil rouge that connects the great virtuoso Joachim to Si-Hon-Ma.
Good evening. This is Steve Ember welcoming you to another concert of chamber music from the Coolidge Auditorium of the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. Our artists are violinist Ma Si-Hon and pianist Tung Kwang Kwang.
After the death of Maestro Ma, his relatives decided to join the Friends of Stradivari project, and so the violin is since about a week here in Cremona, and I hope it will stay for a few years.